Welcome to the Green Talk. I'm your host, Mizraim, and I'm happy to be here with you all today. I know we have talked about a lot of time about the perfect fertilizer, the right equipment for the job. But what about the conversation about the thing that actually pays for it? Well, today we joined by Loren, and we're going to be talking about the sales of art, but not as a pressure, but has a methodology for trust. So Lauren is going to talk with us about how to recruit the right people, how to train them to become a trusted advisors, but more important, how to build a culture where sales is the heartbeat of growth and the green industry. So Lauren, welcome to the podcast. How you feeling today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Miz. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. It's good to see you again.
Likewise.
We shared the stage a few months ago in Las Vegas, and it was a very nice experience to hear everything you're doing with your company. Do you want to talk to us first, Lauren, a little bit about your company and everything you guys are doing on the San Francisco area?
Yeah, I appreciate it. So again, Loren McIrvin from Allied Landscape. I started the company about 20 years ago. We started in 2005. We're based in the San Francisco Bay Area. We specialize in commercial landscape management. And I grew up in a landscape management family. So I grew up with my mom and dad doing landscaping in the Bay Area. So I have worked in very small companies, but I've also done time working for some of the biggest landscape companies prior to me starting my company. And I'm glad I have an opportunity to talk to you today a little bit about sales because while the first part of my career was heavily focused on the technical side of what landscape management is, I almost feel like people can get caught up in the academic side and not get an opportunity to make a real impact, to create landscapes and create meaningful landscapes and be able to utilize all of that technical knowledge. Sales needs to be a part of that.
100%. And I'm glad that you brought this to my attention. Again, like I said in the beginning, talk about fertilizers, equipment, softwares, but really sales is what pays for all of these tools and toys and a company. So I really appreciated this different angle of the industry, and I'm pretty sure you're going to bring a lot of experience and knowledge to the table. Lauren, let's start with, in your point of view, what it is broken or at least outdated on how sales has been approached in our industry lately.
I think more than anything, I think landscapers are really good about trying to make sure that we're operating safe, that we're trying to operate compliant, that we're approaching the job in a technical way to really try to do what's best for the client. That said, I think there is a missing component in terms of helping create those what we call humble, trusted advisors. You touched on that. And I think that's a critical component because the last thing I want is people to have the wrong impression of what sales is. I think sales in our industry really can be something that's done with a lot of respect and integrity. I think sales, just the word sales, gets a bad rap because people execute that wrong. You walk into a car dealership and you end up having a weird situation or a weird experience. And I think a lot of people are aggressive when it comes to sales. They are not bringing anything to the table from a technical experience, from a technical knowledge standpoint, and they don't really establish a rapport. Trust is part of that. So when you ask me, what do I think is missing? I think training is missing. I think ultimately training and a formalized training program tied to a formalized tracking and methodology tied to how we do sales is largely a missing component. If I were to speak just to landscape management, business development, oftentimes at best, what companies are doing is they're hiring a wolf or a hunter and they're sending that person out there and saying, well, listen, go make sales. You like talking, go talk to people. And they're setting that person up for failure or they're setting that person up to ruin your brand. For example, when it comes to closing sales, I think there's certain business developers or certain ways to approach it to open the door, but then to bring in operational folks to really lay the groundwork for what you can deliver for that potential client and come through on that promise versus having this lone hunter out there making promises and maybe speaking to a technical side of the business that they just don't understand. They don't have that worldly experience to kind of back it up. So more than anything, what I believe is wrong with it is lack of training, lack of ongoing sales management, both from the business developer side and the enhancement sales side, and making sure that we're not just training what it is to be a technical landscaper, but also how to feel comfortable talking to different personality types and dealing with rejection in some cases, right? So that's what
Yeah.
I think is wrong.
Yeah, no, totally understand that part of it. And going back to something that you mentioned it, and actually in our previous conversation, the arrangement to this podcast, sales methodology, what that really means to you when you say that.
Yeah, when I really boiled down what it is to create a successful company for myself, I think I leaned on trying to simplify things down as simple as you can get it. And for me, it starts with having great people, then it goes to having great partnerships, and then it's about great performance. Well, what I would say is that people component, making sure you have great people, really has everything to do with having the right people in the right seats or in the right positions. And then to be able to have the tools to be successful, right? So training components tied to that. So if you back the whole thing up, and one of the most critical pieces is making sure you have somebody who's wired for the position or right for the position, we lean into personality profiles to even prior to hiring somebody. We want to make sure that the personality profile aligns with the position that we have available to us. And there's very sophisticated personality profiles. We use Culture Index, but Predictive Index does much of the same. And I think what you're trying to do is really try to analytically figure out what's the right personality to fit into that role and make sure that there's some screening that's going on. What I can tell you in terms of some of the most painful lessons learned for me in my career was having the wrong people in the wrong positions. I wasted my time, I wasted their time. I think if you can really articulate what you're looking for in a meaningful way and articulate how you're going about your recruiting process to both benefit the potential employee and the company, that, hey, we need to first and foremost get through this personality profile test. And this is why we do it and how we do it. And then, secondarily, for anybody who is in sales at Allied Landscape, we have a secondary test that gets at some of the knowledge, some of the basic competencies. So we use a test called Sales DNA. And that test really tries to figure out, well, how's that person wired? Do they need to be liked? Are they uneasy about rejection? Getting at some of those are really important prior to the hire. Now, we don't necessarily screen people out on that secondary test, but we go into it with our eyes open, knowing what we are up against in terms of training. For example, I'm of the opinion that if you need to really be liked as part of the sales process, odds are what you're going to end up doing is you're going to worry more about how people think about you than trying to do what it is to be a trusted advisor, a landscape professional, a landscape consultant. You need to be comfortable in your skin. I'm saying I'm trying to treat your property as if it was my own, and I'm trying to bring value. And this is the experience I have, and this is how I would approach improving property value for you, and not have to feel liked as part of that, because inevitably what ends up happening in those instances is you end up with a person who's more concerned about, oh, do they like me? Well, maybe I should lower the cost. Well, I didn't get a good impression based on the way they were looking at me. So first and foremost, trying to figure out if you have the right person from a personality profile standpoint, and that secondary test has been very helpful for us. So that's the first piece. Any questions on that front? Because I
No, it was great. Thank you. You touched a very good point, people. And also I really appreciate the way you break down, the way you do it. Just hearing you talking, I was thinking on my mind, how do you see the best recruiters coming from inside the industry or bringing people from the other fields?
Yeah, so I wouldn't, and this might be a byproduct of my area. It's very expensive to live in the San Francisco area. So I wouldn't say I have the benefit of a humongous horticulture program that has a lot of folks that are staying close to home. We end up with people from all over the world living in the Bay Area with backgrounds that range all over the place. That said, I would say that our community at Allied, we try to make sure that communication is really tight. So we do seek folks that speak Spanish, and our market allows us to do that. So by and large, our management team is Latin based. By and large, the folks that are doing the hard work on the front lines are Latin based. So I guess what I would say is they don't need to come from a landscaping background. We can teach that part. What we need is somebody who has a certain energy, who wants to make an impact. The landscape part, by and large, can be taught. Like I said, I feel like landscapers in general are really great at teaching the technical part. It's the foundational part. Are they a culture fit? Are they going to fit into what we call a team or a family? Are they going to fit into our culture and contribute and feel comfortable? That's the critical piece. We can teach all the other stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I really like the way you think about it. People training, focusing on what is the need on your area. All these components really help to. It doesn't matter where we are in the country. Putting all this together, just applying these principles to your area or to your market really help. And I know you mentioned a little bit, but do you believe in hiring for the attitude or hiring for the skill? Just to reinforce that idea.
100% for the attitude. Everything else is easy. At the end of the day, um, making sure that we're all rowing in the same direction, that we all feel like we're contributing to something bigger than ourselves, that we can have that kind of rah rah team spirit and celebrate successes. It's 100% attitude first.
Awesome. And how do you interview to uncover that with someone?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the pre-screening things to kind of get
Mhm.
past some of the personality profiles, and that gets at a little bit of it. But
Okay.
really, from the interview standpoint, it's about having multiple interviews with multiple people within the company. You don't just want a direct manager interviewing the person that you're trying to hire, whether that's an account manager, a production manager. And I think some of the most powerful techniques that I've learned from smarter people than myself is trying to bring them out to coffee. Better yet, a drive. If you can take a short drive in a vehicle when you're not looking face to face and say, hey, if you don't mind, if we could spend the next half hour, I'm going to ask you some questions to sit next to me and we'll drive some of our jobs. And if you have questions for me, great. And I'll be asking you some interview questions. You get a better sense of who the person is when you take them out of that formal setting and you're just driving together. I think there's some power to that. So I think you learn who the person is if you utilize multiple different people to do the interviews, so multiple interviews. And then secondarily, think about taking them out of a formal environment,
I
trying to
really
let their guard down.
I love that idea. Take that person outside the I don't want to say the comfort zone, but
Mhm.
just out of the normal and
Yeah.
just have an honest, transparent conversation about it. Great idea. Thank you for pointing that out, Lauren. So one challenge that many people are facing is turnover. So what leaders can do differently to face this challenge when become recruiting salespeople?
Yeah. So the turnover piece, I think one, again, it starts at the beginning, trying to hire correctly. Secondarily, being really transparent about your core values and what your culture operates. My culture is at Allied Landscape is a little bit more, I would say, competitive. I would say fun. I would say energetic would be the best
Exactly.
word. That we're really in it, that we're really trying to have fun with it. And I can tell you, if we go do a cultural event, if we get together after a meeting and we're all just sitting around a table, one of us will likely start a game and we'll start competing. We'll start playing games because we like that kind of team spirit. We like having fun. We like winning. So I would say making sure that you're transparent about what the person's getting into, that we've got some energy here. We love having fun and we're bringing it. We're making an impact. It's important for them to know what they're getting into, right? So, one, consider their personality, make sure you get them in the right position around the personality. Secondarily, make sure they know what they're getting into, that they understand your core values and what you're trying to accomplish and the energy of the company. What I can tell you is just out of the gates in terms of what's in our vision, we want to create meaningful landscapes. And that's important for us to articulate because when we get account managers from if we hire account managers from our competition, sometimes those folks sit back and take orders and they're really not being an advisor in any real sense. What they're doing is they're walking with their clients and they're saying, well, what do you think? Well, what do you think? Okay, I'll keep a note. I'll try to get this done. I'll try to follow up with you. That's not what we do. What we do is we think it's important to provide value to the customer. And what's part of that is appreciating their landscape asset or their property value. So, just right out of the gates, making sure that our account managers know that we want to go out there and we want to make landscapes more beautiful, more efficient, better for the local ecology. We want to evolve landscapes. We want to grow landscapes. We don't want to go out there and just be giving haircuts. The idea of going out there and just turning things into little spheres with little haircuts, getting out there and trimming instead of pruning, getting out there and giving grass a bunch of haircuts week after week. I'm more excited about making a landscape that looks absolutely fantastic, offers value to the property owner, reduces liability. That's what it's about. So, in terms of our retention, it's about being clear, it's about providing training, and more than anything, it's about listening and celebrating, making sure that we're listening to what's going on and making sure that we're helping them, making sure that we're recognizing when they're doing great. And that doesn't always necessarily mean just sales, right? It could be sales activities. I've got an account manager that I'm thinking of right now that I was just on our weekly scoreboard meeting. And by all rights, the KPI from a sales perspective is not great. This particular account manager has been with me in a year and a half. What I was able to celebrate and what I'm really proud of this account manager for is while the sales are not closing completely at the rate that we want, the sales activities, working the sales pipeline, knowing the clients, having a sound understanding of how they should be prioritizing their time, that's all in place. So if you hire right, if you make sure that you're transparent about what the expectations are, if you are offering all the tools and guidance in weekly one to one meetings to make sure people are feeling heard, respected, and given the help that they need, on top of making sure that they're being recognized for the energy and effort that they're putting into the company, that will absolutely help with retention. It's a lot of work, and we're very methodical and process driven around making sure that we are appreciating and showing recognition on a weekly basis. It's just worked in. It's not something that just comes natural. It's something that is part of our process.
Yeah, totally. And in order to do all that, just to reinforce the idea, you must have the right people to do it, to find
That's
the right people. That's step one. And then step two that you mentioned it, we can say that it is a training process. And you mentioned it early in your comment, and I would like to go back to that if you okay with it. What's the difference between order takers and trusted advisors? How do you explain that to a new hire?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because for me, it's the right people, but secondarily, it's the right seat or right position. And what I think is critical is I come from a Valley Crest background. And at Valley Crest, I was expected to handle everything from an operational standpoint and everything from a customer standpoint. in my opinion, that those roles should be split. So, watching Brickman advance early in my career and understanding kind of the Brickman model, even though I was at Valley Crest at the time, I knew early on that it's like, that makes sense. I think people are either wired for operations or they're wired for people or wired for sales. So, to answer your question in terms of making sure that we set that up right, it's about making sure that those positions are completely separate to the extent that we can, and that the operational side of our house from a landscape management standpoint is handled by what we call an operations manager, what most of the industry call a production manager.
Production manager.
Now, the production manager on our hierarchy is directly across from an account manager. We do not have our account managers managing our operations managers. We have a very sophisticated operations team that has worked very hard to be managed by people who know the job. So, conceptually, I think it's really important to the best of your ability to separate maintenance operations and quality control from account management. And that comes with its own challenges, having that in two separate roles. But this allows the account manager to have a position that is really focused on establishing, nurturing, maintaining partnerships, making sure that we know who the client is. We know who the client is and that we can communicate with them the way they want to be communicated with, at the frequency they want it to be communicated with. And it allows them to have time to generate budgets, roadmaps, comprehensive planning, make sure that they're taking advantage of corporate driven seasonal sales campaigns. If you want your account managers to be trusted advisors, they cannot be dragged into making sure that the team has line trimmer string at 6 a.m. in the morning. You can't do both. And I feel like when an account manager is tied to operations, that inevitably it's the thing that is most urgent and most pressing. And what they had scheduled for their day that might have equated to them being a trusted advisor turned into, well, I better go grab that line trimmer string because we need it tomorrow. I'm going to need to push off this meeting that I had with this client in the afternoon because I need to make sure I have line trimmer string tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So, more than anything, it's being realistic with how complicated these roles are. On their own, even separated, they are very complex roles, very difficult roles.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for the majority of the companies in our industry now are moving into that direction, splitting roles. I know it's a process, right, to get there, but many more people are seeing that benefit that you just explained it perfectly. Some people are just wired for operations, others for sales. You name it, people. So it's always good to have that separation in the roles. So staying on the training line of thought of process, Lauren, what is some training methods that you have seen in your company organization working the best? Role playing, shadowing, field exposure. You have any
Yes,
specifics?
I do. And, I was thankful enough to be at an NALP event, and I think they were touring Southern Botanical in the Dallas market. And I was really impressed with them adopting a sales process for both the business developers and the account managers in the same room. And I thought that was powerful. And it opened my eyes. It made me think, wow, these should not be separate. They should be together. They could be really working in a meaningful way to expand with our existing clients from a business development standpoint. And then when they shared that they were using a Sandler sales system, it made me think, well, I need to do some research. I need to have a formalized sales methodology that I think would be a good fit. And I was thankful enough to reach out to, I believe it was Marty Grunder, who mentioned, hey, I'm hearing some good things about integrity selling. So we adopted integrity selling, and they really have a unique platform that allows you to, one, either go through a formalized training process where you can gather everybody up in a room. You could do that once a week for 6 weeks, 12 weeks. You can get a certified professional to come out and do it. Or they have an online platform that I thought was really powerful. And this platform puts you in a position of everybody, all of the account managers and business developers, having a set thing to do or focus on. And that could range from understanding who the client is, working through personality profiles from a customer standpoint. It could be asking the right questions, right? And really selling with integrity by trying to listen to what the client wants and not try to sell them what they're not asking for. So, whether it's knowing who the client was, asking the right questions, making sure that you're tailoring your delivery in a way that is conducive or matches that personality type. For example, I'm a pretty fast paced guy. If I have a salesperson that's trying to sell me fertilizer or something like that, I always feel like I've got things to get done. I've got places to go. I owe people things. I have things I want to get accomplished. So when somebody delivers messaging to somebody with my personality type, it really needs to be abbreviated. It really needs to have an ROI. It needs to be very direct. Versus if you have somebody who just loves to talk and you need to have that kind of social experience and earn that trust, that we're building people up. So again, that's integrity selling that starts with making sure that we understand the client, making sure that we're asking the right questions, that we're packaging it in a way that helps the client absorb that information. We're just trying to make things easy. So we've gone through that program that program on a week after week basis, which we conduct twice a year now, includes role playing, taking short videos of yourself and doing selling over a video, which again, I think is a really powerful tool. For
It is.
some of the clients that we have in the Bay Area, we've got really tight traffic. And in some cases, it's hard to get our clients out to the job site. So being comfortable on video and being able to shoot a selfie and try to talk as silly as it is into a camera and kind of walk around and say, here's what we're seeing. Here's what we think might be of value to you. I'm working with the team on some maintenance issues. Those are powerful tools. So to answer your question in a very long roundabout way,
So good.
integrity selling was a great methodology for us and continues to be so. Beyond that, it's about gathering site information and creating budgets and understanding as a team, which should include ownership if they're the technical person. It should include branch managers, that we're going out to jobs and we're saying, well, what do you see? What do you see? And learn by doing and making sure that we're walking around a site, we're creating a budget, we're creating ideally a dynamic map with polygons that could be turned on and off with certain dollar amounts so that we can go to the client and say, well, this isn't a 12-month plan. This is a 36-month plan, or this is a 5-year plan. And here's how we would approach it. But let me better understand what's important to you. What's up for lease next year? What's happening in terms of development? How do you see this property? So again, I think it's just about doing.
Yeah, and thinking outside the box, right? Trying to customize all the ideas out there into your organization and with you people. And I really like the idea of doing short videos just to, be able to communicate in a better way. Because sometimes people just stay with emails or text messages, things like that, and people are different. So that thought process is just trying to find different ways to communicate and approach the sales is always good. And
Well,
how yeah, go ahead.
and it makes me think about the conversation that we've had in the past. Utilizing drones, giving people the information in a way that's a little bit different. While I appreciate leveraging ChatGPT or whatever your AI is to send a well thought out email, what I would tell you is people are going to be leaning into ChatGPT more and more. And all of your account manager competition is going to have these very lengthy ChatGPT driven emails that humans, again, are going to be kind of checking out from. If Ms. can say, hey, listen, I shot a quick drone video and I walked around myself with an instant 360 camera to kind of show you some things to give you a sense of what it feels like, that's different. That's something that is what I think people are going to be thirsty for as we head into more and more AI emails, and that is a human experience, that they're hearing a human voice, that they're seeing a human face. That stuff's not going out of style. Lengthy emails, they're going to go out of style to me very fast. And people are going to have things sitting in their email box and they're going to be like, oh God, that must be ChatGPT because it's 7 paragraphs long. I don't have time for this. I'll read it on the weekend. Thinking outside the box is important.
Yeah, and staying human as well, and looking for ideas. So that's a great approach. So how we do measure success in training? Do you have any specific metrics for that?
Well, again, it's that sales DNA test that we start at the beginning. That if you look that test up, it shows where your competencies are. And some of those are creating a video, some of those are they know how to use a sales pipeline. So, as a starting point, using that test to kind of get at current competencies from a coaching standpoint, and then being able to take that test on an annual basis to see all of these measures, whether it's an understanding of how to prospect, an understanding of how to use a sales pipeline, an understanding of our comfort level tied to shooting a video. Now you've got certain metrics that you can follow up on and see if we're making a measurable difference, right? Now, when it comes to operational side of the house, which we're not talking about completely here, it's a little more difficult.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Operation sales are different, but all these aspects can help to track really if the training is being success or not. So let's move forward, if you can, Lauren, to how we can build a culture around sales, right? So how we can, how a companies, how what's the process you're doing to build a culture where sales is respect, supported, and integrated.
Yeah, and I like how you worded the question. And I'll start with the business developers because I feel like business developers are usually left out of the company's culture. Is this small group of lone wolves out there trying to make sales, and you end up with a natural conflict because there's a handoff between business development and account management, and the account managers are saying, "Ah, they underbid it," or they didn't give me all the information we needed. So, making sure that you drag account managers and business developers into one culture and not create subcultures, really important. I think it starts with, on that front, establishing what the goals are for the company. And if, for example, one of our core values is just one word: grow. We want to grow the company, and because that's weaved into our employee recognition, because that's weaved into everything that we do, we know just how important growing the company is. And it sets the basis for opportunity. If we're growing the company, it allows for career advancement for so many people within the company that everybody's on board at that point. And it's like, so we're growing because we want career advancement. And we tie this back and really believe and speak to what we believe the American dream is. And that is somebody who, whether they come to this country yesterday or whether they came to this country 5 generations ago, decides to come, work hard, and from not just a labor standpoint, but from an educational standpoint, and really sees that American dream. So, to establish a good culture around sales, one, we need to establish, why are we growing? Okay, once we've got that, now we respect the idea of growth. Secondarily, we make sure that once we have the why established, that we're celebrating it and we have fun with it. We've got goofy things that we do. We're expecting people to take pictures with a little trophy. What we say at Allied is we want to be a world class team, and we reference that to kind of football. Yeah. So the concept of us having the World Cup, we've got a World Cup that if you win the month, you're taking a picture with our soccer World Cup, our football World Cup right in your hand. And those kind of fun little things to celebrate the successes and make sure that those business developers are being recognized by the entire team for some of those wins and some of the energy put out there. The same goes for the account manager. That's really important. And ironically, and what kind of drives this is business developers need that. they need to feel as if they are part of something, that oftentimes their personality profile is such that recognition and appreciation just goes hand in hand with how they're wired. So making sure that we're having fun, that we have little contests, that we're racing for things, that we're creating a fun competition around things, and that we're taking goofy pictures tied to that, really important, right?
Really important. Yeah, make everyone feel like they're part of the same purpose, the same team. And I'm totally agree with you. Sometimes, just sometimes it's just the way it is, right? And just people doing the best on their field, and it seems like everyone is just working in a different direction. But bottom line, we all should be integrated and working on the same with the same purpose and has a one team. The next question or point of conversation, Lauren, I want to stay separate. Okay, we're going to talk about leadership and also operations. So the first point I want to talk about is how or what role leadership play in keeping salespeople accountable, but also inspire.
Sure. Well, I think what's critical for any company is to one, measure results. I just got done just a few minutes ago before this meeting having our weekly scoreboard meeting. And we run down as a company how we're doing from an operational standpoint, how we're doing from an account management standpoint, how we're doing from a business development standpoint. And you can just feel in that digital meeting the kind of celebrating your peers, but also folks in other departments. So, from a leadership standpoint, I think it needs to be worked into how you do things. What's inspected is respected. What's measured matters. The concept of having the scoreboard up, we're not just playing to play, we're playing to win. And if there's no score against something, well, that just doesn't work. And we're working against benchmarks that are put in the industry. We're working towards landscape companies that we admire, some of their scores. We're going after their KPIs. We're looking to beat their KPIs and then hopefully find somebody that's doing better than them. And then we want to beat them. So the concept of being a scoreboard company and celebrating things and helping is the critical piece from a leadership standpoint.
Awesome. And now leadership, now operations. How operations team and sales teams can be aligned so promises made in the field when a sale is happening can be delivered by crews. That's a very common issue or problem across the industry, but how both teams can be aligned and be able to deliver it what has been said or promised to a client.
Yeah, I agree with you on this point, and this is something that we're still working with. But what I can tell you is what we're currently doing and what we hope to do. So, right out of the gates, we're incorporating operations managers into providing the operational hours for our estimates. It's a bit of a drag on them, but we want to make sure that they have a voice in the process, right? So the salesperson is getting out there, they're opening the door, and then we're having our operations team say, well, this is how fast we can execute this, we believe. We compare that to industry square footage rates and past analytics that we've been gathering on what we believe we can perform work at, depending on the size, the age, and the type of job it is. So it's funny because if you catch an operations manager early in the day and you say, well, how long do you think it might take to take care of this commercial business part? I think I can get this done in 5 hours. You ask them the same question on a Friday after a long week, and you ask him late in the afternoon, and he says, it's going to take a full day. No two ways about it. So
Yeah, right.
you've got to have these data points that you can compare against, but make sure that you're communicating and talking to the operations managers about them having a voice, where you landed, why you landed that way, and then offering them the help to figure out how to manage their way to profitability, right? So out of the gates, they need to know what their goal is. They need to have analytics on a weekly basis to know what their budget is against what they're using, right? But what I would say is something that we're going to be experimenting with is leveraging some technology, some wearables by way of, I think it's top green now, but no different than you potentially using a Garmin and figuring out, okay, what if we were to go to our new jobs and send a seasoned team to just go start new jobs and to set the standard for a month and to track all of your path of motion, to set up the lean maps, and to be able to work through. We're not there yet, but what we do is we have our operations managers work with our crew supervisors in a coaching capacity, not a kind of drill sergeant capacity on how they should consider approaching the job, but allowing them to ultimately choose how they approach that job and get to the number, right? And then lastly, Ms. on this is making sure that they understand what's typically important to a customer, a general customer, and then more importantly to this customer. I think our industry overproduces work. I think landscapers love seeing green grass and they love seeing lines in the grass and they love it being perfect. The funny part is, if you were to figure out all of the jobs that they've lost over the last 20 years, odds are nobody's firing anybody because it's slightly not green or it doesn't have the right lines. It's because you haven't been communicating to the client. You haven't been appreciating the property value in a meaningful way. But I think oftentimes we love beautiful landscapes and the quality control needs to be 100% when the client, you're overproducing the work because it's not what the client's asking for. It's not what's important to the client. So again, a roundabout way to kind of get at how we try to give them a voice, but also empower operations to know what matters most and to coach them through tight bids, because there's a reality. The San Francisco market is tight, just like many markets around the country. It's a tough business. You got to figure it out. You got to be smart.
Yeah, and understanding how both things operate definitely is going to help to get there, right? It's a tough process. It's not an easy thing to do, but companies, organizations that make that possible is going to be able to keep success more and be able to deliver a better product for their clients. So we can say that culture is the ecosystem sales grow in. So
Mhm.
that's why it's very important that the companies keep building this culture into their organization. Moving into the next topic, Lauren, future of sales and landscaping. So, what shift do you see coming in how customers want to be approached? More data, more transparency, maybe more technology?
Well, you know what I would say is it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about business development, it really comes down to understanding who that client is. And if you are working with, if you have gone through a selling program that can help you identify the type of client you have, who delivers messaging to me and my personality type is, that's not going to change. At the end of the day, I'm looking for concise information. I'm looking for ROI. I'm looking for just quickly companies of my size, the way I do business, show me quickly how that looks. But of the future, the socializer or the person who has to be brought out to coffee a few times first and maybe be brought around to some of your current clients and maybe somebody who needs to see in-depth report, that's something different. So when you ask me from a business development standpoint, I don't see a lot of that changing. I would double down on the concept of creating true relationships, be there, do what you say you're going to do. That's just critical pieces. Just be a trusted human being first and foremost. And I think it's also important to realize that you don't need to be liked. You need to be likable and you need to bring value. At the end of the day, I think people go out of their ways to try to really create friendships when really what they should be doing is showing what they can do for the potential client. Now, in terms of account management and leveraging a different methodology and how I see the future, that I can answer a little bit more articulately. I think the critical piece for account management is one to take a longer view. That landscape management is about taking a landscape asset or property and making sure that we're creating a longer budget, a 3-year budget, right? Not a 1-year budget, a 3 to 5 year budget. That we're being as visual as possible with that. And we're categorizing that in a way that, to me, of the future, it's a dynamic mapping system that's tied to a spreadsheet that allows people to take a look at their property from a geographic standpoint, then being able to access a dynamic map and a spreadsheet and be able to say, okay, I just want to focus on everything that's been categorized as a liability, right? I want to handle all of my safety and security issues site wide. Okay. Now I want to take a look at efficiency. I want to see if I can reduce water usage and utilize some of the water rebates that might be available. I want to think about how to make my landscape more efficient from a water standpoint. And then something that doesn't get talked about enough, how do I make my landscape more efficient from a maintenance perspective? Oftentimes, we have shrubs that want to get 20 feet tall by 20 feet wide, and they're planted right next to a sidewalk. Somebody needs to have a conversation with that property manager and say, hey, listen, how about we get the right plant for the right place?
Mhm.
So I can make your landscape more efficient and I can reduce my maintenance costs by 20% if we get rid of the heavy labor type landscape. And by the way, all of those plants that I'm no longer shearing or giving haircuts are going to be healthier. They're going to look better. You're going to get to see the blooms. So, to answer your question, dynamic mapping, picture based, a spreadsheet that allows somebody to pick and pull from year one into year three so that there's just a clear established budget, but done in a very comprehensive way with as little words as possible. I think people would be surprised to know that a good 25% of our population probably has a reading challenge. And then you've got me who is in another camp that I don't want to read seven
Yeah.
paragraphs. I want to see a bullet. I want to see bullets. I want to see that you can make something complicated simple because I think
Mhm.
that's a sign of somebody who knows what they're doing, right? Give me the information, but give it to me in a way that I can comprehend quickly and understand and bring to the different stakeholders that are tied to the decision making process. So I'm excited for all things dynamic mapping, especially as it pertains to having some type of corresponding spreadsheet. And then again, like you, I'm a big fan of anything tied to video. So if you can go around and help people visualize what the property looks like now and give them a bird's eye view of things. And then you can talk about what it's going to look like. I think there's opportunity. I also think there's big opportunity in third parties helping us out with design presentation. There's a lot of folks in a lot of different countries that specialize in landscape design that would be happy to offer you their take on what they might do to a landscape or make it take what your vision is and make it more visually appealing by way of digital fly-ins, real opportunities out there.
Yeah, definitely. And the era that we live in now, the time we live in now, people want the information like right now and to the point, right? A video, a picture, a quick note of how things are gonna look after, and that definitely is what's gonna keep helping people on the sales portion of the business. Definitely. So, Lauren, yeah.
Miz, on that one last part, and I think it's important, and I almost give that a name. I feel like when I talk to my account managers, I feel like it's the Amazon effect, right? Amazon, for all of the bad that it might be doing, it has set a new standard in terms of, to me, what customer service is. They make it super easy to buy. They give you an opportunity to review what other people are saying. They give you a bunch of pictures of what that item looks like. They let you know when it's shipped. They let you know when it's on its way. They let you know when it showed up. And they give you an opportunity to fix things if they go bad. So, we have a very high bar set on us that I think when I started my career 25, 30 years ago, that bar was not there. At the end of the day, people did not expect fast, immediate attention with pictures and leveraging technology that they can find out everything regarding that purchase on their phone like that. It's a very good point.
It is, yeah. And I want to add to the Amazon process. When they made the delivery, they snap a picture of the front porch, right? It's been done, it's here, ready to go. And that give you that peace of calm if you are working around the office and then you saw the
Mhm.
picture and okay, it's there. So it's gonna be there whenever I go back home. So yeah, it's a perfect model to
Yep,
customize into your organization.
I
Yeah, good
agree.
point. Good point. So Lauren, next generation of leaders, people either in the green industry or any other industry, but more specifically in our industry. Any advice for them? Either it is in sales specifically or in the industry overall?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, there's a couple things. One, try to be as humble as possible. I think that's one of the unique things that we have in our industry, that I have made plenty of mistakes. And I'm always impressed when I hear of company owners much bigger than mine share vulnerable stories in terms of what they've done wrong. So the concept of being humble and just owning that we're trying to figure this out as we go, that's important. So humble and vulnerable, pretty important. To try to be a good listener. At the end of the day, I think there's lots of people that can, the more voices, the better, as long as it makes sense and that it's structured. So, good listening is important. I think the concept of adopting um, a commitment to continuous improvement. That's important. Whether you call it Kaizen, whether you call it continuous improvement, whether you call it lean, whatever you want to call it, I think the concept of somebody in your organization, all leaders, how can we do it better? Amazon's doing like this. What can we do? How can we get that? How can we be better than that? The concept of not being complacent and saying, how could it be better? I'm putting my customer's hat on. What can we do better? Yeah, we do it good, but is it good enough? And I would also suggest a bigger world view. I was impressed working with a landscaper and a peer group that opened my eyes that he wasn't trying to be the best landscaper. He was trying to be world class service delivery person. When he looked at how he wanted to be, he was looking at the Ritz Carlton. He wasn't looking to Brightview as the standard. He was looking for real service providers on the highest of levels in the world. How can I be world class, not just the best in your market, best in the world? I think that's important. And I adopted that soon after. So, continuous improvement, be world class, be humble, be vulnerable, and listen and help.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those advices, Lauren. And I really enjoy this conversation. Thank you for all
Thanks.
your knowledge, all your insights, all your experience. It's been a great. I'm pretty sure it's going to be great information for many people out there. Before we end our conversation here, I want to talk about a little bit what is going to happen in your personal professional career in a few weeks now at Elevate in Phoenix, Arizona. You're going to be speaking
Yes,
in there. You want to give us a little bit of introduction of what people going to
sure.
expect there?
Yeah, so I would hope that anybody who wants to kind of expand on this conversation, I've been given a good amount of time at Elevate to speak to what it is to take a look at enhancement sales in a meaningful way. So we'll be able to expand on this conversation a bit. So I would hope to see anybody in Phoenix. Beyond that, if you're not going to be making it out to Phoenix, I'm going to do a similar talk for the Irrigation Association. I believe that's in New Orleans in December. So I hope to catch anybody out there. I'm an open book, and I grew up as a landscaper, and what I would say is our industry is fantastic in terms of people that are just willing to help. So reach out to me, whether or not it's LinkedIn or email, and I hope to see any of you at either NALP Elevate in Arizona or Irrigation Association in New Orleans this year.
Yeah, and when and at Elevate, when is your speech? What day and what time?
I believe, bear with me, I believe it's Wednesday at 8 a.m., something
Okay,
like that. But
so
you'll find me. It's early, so come sober. Okay.
and how people can find you or reach out to you, Lauren.
Yeah. So, if anything, LinkedIn is a good way to find me. So just look up my name, Loren McIrvin. Please reach out. I try to do updates, recognize my team. You get to see a little bit of how I approach sales to the extent that I do on that social media platform.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Lauren. Again, I really enjoyed this conversation. It's nice, good to see you again.
Yeah, Ms., you just real quick, part of the reason why I wanted to come on here is I would say I really appreciate what you do. We don't have enough voices in our industry that have a Latin accent, have a Latin background. At the end of the day, it should not be that way. There's a lot of folks that are working hard that I'm hoping that they see what you're doing and how you're putting the information out there and how you're adding to the industry, because there's a lot of folks that have a lot of voices that should be heard. Some of the most powerful advice that I've received, just period, has come from a Latin based community that really made me rethink how I approach leadership and how I approach running and creating my business. So it's good to see what you're doing, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate it. Trying to do the best here, helping everyone in the industry, and I appreciate it. To our listeners, thank you so much. I really hope you find this episode helpful and with a lot of insights and knowledge on how to expedite the process of selling in your organization. So until the next time, this is the Green Talk podcast. Thank you so much.